Welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Google Plus Week. Oh, we're back. I'm Dan McDermott, your host. Let's look at our panel here. We have, sorry, I got cut off guard. The thing's behaving weirdly. We have joining us
Different from now. From what? Doesn't it always behave weirdly?
No, there's no preview player. Normally, I have a preview player here, and it's not on the YouTube Live page. So I did a quick check to see if it was playing, and it was. So there we go. But anyway, joining us from Menifee, California, is the lovely Pam Adger. Welcome, Pam. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing quite well. Thanks for asking. Pam's very polite for the first hour and a half or so. Until Craig comes in. Joining us from Thurmont, Maryland is Mr. Craig Shipp. Welcome, Craig. Always a pleasure, sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
I see you have a basket of something next to you. Is that treats for the gang?
That was actually there last week as well. I'm probably the only panelist that has a dedicated setup strictly for this show. The only time I boot this computer and launch Chrome on this computer is when I'm doing this show. So it launches, and I've already got your notes in one tab, and the Hangout's ready in the other tab. Everything's just ready to go.
Awesome. That's exciting to know. We appreciate your dedication to Google Plus Week, the money and time-sucking hole that we adore. A good blast from the past this week. We have Anthony Clouser joining us from Rochester, New York. How are you, Anthony?
I'm good, Dan.
Excellent. Anthony is our spokesman and lighting director. See, I'm trolling you already, and you've only just come back. Joining us from San Francisco, California, and tell us why you're there, Dr. Furstenberg. Welcome, sir.
Hey Dan, good to be here. I am in San Francisco because next week is Google I/O, which will be just a few blocks from me. But currently I'm here, and I'll be leaving early this evening to stop in at a Glass hackathon later. Then I'm attending some meetings up in Mountain View, and then capping off. Actually, I should say in between the hackathon and the meetings at I/O, I will be meeting up with panelists Pam and Cadeas, and Pam's husband Rodney. We'll be taking in some of the sights of San Francisco and doing our Monday night show, hopefully from the Android Garden at Mountain View. I have some summit stuff that I'll be doing up at Mountain View, and then capping everything off will be I/O next Wednesday and Thursday.
Awesome. I'm sure you're looking forward to that. And I understand that you don't drink, so you are the driver of the group, is what I'm hearing. I'm just kidding.
Which is dangerous considering I'm the one that'll be here, A, without a car, B, that hates San Francisco driving. Although I was navigator today for somebody else.
Excellent.
Do you have a driver's license?
I do have a driver's license. I guess I'm being roped into driving.
If for the mid-morning coffee, you're probably off the hook. But anything after 2 p.m. probably, yeah, there could be some serious potential for YouTube videos. Okay, I am in Bentonville, Virginia. I'm Dan McDermott, your host, co-host, I guess now, and programming note: I will be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow at 11:07 a.m. Eastern Time. That is tomorrow being June 21st, Saturday, if you're watching this later. It's at 11:07 a.m. Eastern, 8:07 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll be discussing the Washington Redskins trademark name issue, the patent office's, help me out, trademark appeal and Trial
Trademark
Board.
Court of Appeals.
Yeah, they
Amazing.
revoked the Washington Redskins' written trademark, and also I'll be discussing the Iraq situation, as only I can, with history lessons in both topics. That is on just Google Virginia Talk Radio Network, and you'll find it tomorrow morning, 11:07 a.m. Eastern. Okay, first topic tonight is this is a real exciting topic. You can place calls to businesses using Hangouts. What's new about this? Oh, this is on their page, right, or something?
Well, the nifty new thing about this is that if you search for a person or business and they have a phone number attached to that, and by search we mean a Google search, that business may show up in the right-hand side of the search results, just like they have for a while now. One of the big changes is that the telephone number for the search, the telephone number in the results, will be a link, and that link will start up a Hangout. And that Hangout will be a telephone call to that phone number. So now, directly from your desktop browser, you'll be able to call businesses just by doing a Google search on those businesses.
Okay, so is this, Craig, do you think this is something you'd use? You're a business owner as well, as I am.
I'm just wondering, does a user have to have the Google Talk plugin installed and all that for it to work, or does it prompt you if you don't have that, or does anybody know how that works?
That's a good question, especially since I don't have a Google Talk plugin at the moment. My speculation is that if you don't have the Google Talk plugin right now, it will prompt you. The real question is, do you need a Google Plus account? Because certainly for some things you do, but to the best of my knowledge, you won't need that. I could be wrong. Again, I have a Google Plus account, so I haven't tried it. I guess I could.
Maybe one of the viewers could do a quick test during the show and let us know in the notes as to whether or not that'll work. Maybe they could do it. Would they be able to do a test in like an incognito window and go and see if they could just make
Incognito would give you the opportunity to test it without an account, but if you're already using the Talk plugin, it wouldn't test that aspect of it.
What if you used a different browser?
Depends.
Google Talk plugin?
If you've installed the Talk plugin, it usually installs it on all of them.
Okay. That would be my question, would be how many John Q. Public typical users out there will actually be able to use this? If a large portion of them will be able to use it, then it might be interesting. Of course, they're going to have a speakers and a microphone on their computer. A lot of modern computers have that built in. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what the uptake is on this.
Actually, it's something that occurred to me. I believe when I tested this at one point, I tested it from an incognito window, and it didn't give me the link at all because I wasn't logged in. So this will only work if you're logged in already.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't most people looking at a business's page have an account?
With Google?
I don't know about that.
Isn't it more likely the only way they would discover your page is either from someone's Facebook page or web page, in which case they really wouldn't need to see the Google Plus page. They wouldn't be interested in seeing it unless they were on Google Plus. If they are a Google Plus member and they're logged in, then they do a Google search for Craig's Plumbing Company, then Google will push that page up front in the search results. Otherwise, I think it's likely they would not. So I don't think it would be it would be unusual for someone to stumble upon someone's Google Plus page in the normal course of browsing unless you are a Google Plus member, because the typical discovery method is on Plus or in Google.com search results if you are logged in and they recognize that you're a Plus member, right?
So that would tell me that it'll probably have relatively limited uptake, because a lot of average users probably won't ever see it then.
I think an increasing number, and a pretty rapidly increasing number of people are logging in when they're doing all of their stuff.
And we're seeing that because a lot of sites are adopting Google Plus login. We're seeing that because people are, logging into mail and staying logged in once they are. We're seeing an increase of people who are using that feature. Now, whether that's a massive number, I don't know. But it's probably getting to the point where it's not an insignificant number.
And also, I think it's worth noting that even though in July 11, a whole bunch of people signed up for Google Plus and then have never posted or are not active now. And, of course, the number increases every month, people who are using it, but not as rapidly as we'd like, probably. But we haven't got numbers in over a year, I don't think. But if someone has activated a Google Plus account, it's associated with their Google account, and they're using Google, even if they're not an active Pluser, they might see that page result and go there, right? And then discover it that way. And then, of course, you're saying that if they don't have Hangouts installed,
well, this is Dan. You're putting a step in there that I don't think exists. This has nothing to do with their Google Plus page. What this has to, this could be a local page. It could be a places page. There are a number of ways that a company can set their phone number these days.
okay.
And that's what that's what will be surfaced here. And it'll be surfaced directly on the search results. You're not going to the page.
Okay.
Now, does this work on mobile devices as well?
I don't believe that it does.
Okay.
Mostly because I think they already had that link, which would launch the telephone.
So like a call now
You remember
button.
what a telephone is, right, Craig?
So a call now button you're talking about?
Yeah.
Wait, is a telephone an iPhone? If it's not, then he doesn't know.
Do they have call now buttons on the Google business listings?
I was pretty sure either it was a call now button or there was some other way that it was directly linked to, that would let you directly call a company or organization or whatever if that's what came up in search results or map results.
Gotcha. Sounds
Yes.
good. We all agree this is massive.
So I have it here. I just Googled Lucky Star Lounge, which is a local restaurant watering hole. And I see if I hover over their phone number in the result on the right side of the Google search results page, like where you'd see a Wikipedia reference or something, I see call via Hangouts as an option there. And then if I go open a Chrome incognito window, then if I pull up the same search URL, I see it on the right here, and the number is not clickable. So you definitely have to have Hangouts, or you have to be logged in or whatever. I'm guessing you don't have to have Hangouts. I'm guessing that if you're just logged in and you don't have Hangouts, that it'll have that thing there, and it'll call and it'll say, install Hangouts in order to use this cool feature. So, anyway. All right. Anything else on this?
Yeah, maybe we'll get some feedback from some viewers on some of these open questions, but we can move on to the next topic.
Okay. Up next is some small video Hangout changes. You can see yourself widescreen. Blue boxing is now white boxing, offending all of the Smurfs. So there's a chance that Hangouts will lose their trademark protection. But anyway, Alan, can you give us or is there anything to say about this other than what I've just said?
More details than what you just gave?
What?
You want me to give more details than the details you just gave?
What shade of blue? Or
Well, Google just wanted to obsolete all the how-to videos that are out there that mention blue box by clicking on a thumbnail.
Ronnie Bincer financial assistance package. No, some of the changes are good ones. A lot of people, when we got the new Hangout video layout, were really peeved by not being able to see themselves, the same way that everyone else was seeing them. this now starts to restore some of those issues. So that's good. Why the blue was changed to white, I have no idea. I cannot even begin to understand why they did that. There are a couple of other small cosmetic changes. I believe the thumbnails are now perfectly square instead of slightly rounded in the corner. They're all pretty trivial and pretty cosmetic.
A comment on the previous story from Sai says that the new feature with the clickable phone number to open up a Hangout window to call someone it also seems to override my Grand Central Google Voice plugin for Chrome, and followed by a sad face. So Sai is sad. So just a note
If
there.
you're still using the Grand Central Chrome plugin, I am truly amazed.
It comes free with AOL and Prodigy.
I mean, Google bought Grand Central how long ago and renamed it?
Okay, so I'm surprised they got rid of the blue boxes since it's become a verb that's used by Googlers. And Nancy, I love this one. Isn't it Google Plus Week every week? Every week is a Google Week, yes. Google Plus
Maybe
Week.
they'll give us a setting and we can change the color.
Fat chance with Chi. That was
But Craig,
the
that would
first.
give you
That was
so
the
much
first
help.
trolling comment from Greg of the night. Go ahead, Michael.
I think that would give Craig too much choice in the matter, because I know like he doesn't like that much choice. You know, that much customization in a product confuses customers. I mean,
Well,
what would Craig do?
I mean, if it's a choice between obsoleting all of Ronnie's how-tos and flipping a little switch, then. But I'm perplexed as to why they changed it. I mean, what the heck possible reason could there be?
Why couldn't it be like, you know, flattening things to make it more square like other design on Google products? I mean, it seems
What
like they
does
want
the
this
color have to
hard
do with it?
square theme. Like, look at what is it, the wearable?
I think they just do it so that, you know, Martin and Ronnie and Mark and all those other people have something to do.
I think what they should do is they
To
should
put
get
out new, new help posts.
what they should do is they should have the circle color, right? The color of circles, and you could switch between palettes, and they could have a little eyedropper tool, so you could move the eyedropper to something on the screen, and select that color, if you're not really sure.
I'm gonna go big. I'm
And
gonna
you
go
should be
big
able to choose
conspiracy
between
theory.
CMYK and RGB, clearly.
I think they did it so that it matches Kadeus's glasses.
Alan has got-
Actually, Craig is actually right, because I think they might have done. I'm the big conspiracy here, but wearables has the square UI where things are square. So I mean, maybe it could do it that way. People come up in a square box, or I don't know.
Michael, have you looked at the Moto 360?
That's round, but did you look at the other design as well, which is square? And I mean, the round one's cut off at the bottom, so I mean, it's a square system on a round thing. So I mean,
It's
I
even more
don't know that.
convoluted than that.
But that's Moto. They're not Google.
It's not
No, that's
finalized yet.
valid. It's not valid because the
sold it
the round template is one of the official Wear templates.
That way, that caters to third-party developer. I mean, third-party manufacturers.
All right.
Next
So,
subject.
next up is Google launches a web starter kit. What's this about?
This was kind of an odd one, especially since it's happening the week before I/O and not at I/O itself. But basically, they've announced that they're providing some tools to help web developers create websites that are highly responsive in design. So you can create a website that works well on both big monitors and tablets and phones. There's a concept called responsive design. It's been popularized by a number of different sites, and there are a number of kits that are already available to do this. This is one from Google that basically says we're going to help you do responsive design really quickly.
Is
So that
this
it shows
okay?
up
Is this
there.
designed for morons like me and Craig, or is this designed for you and Michael?
Probably me and
Somewhere in
Alan.
between.
Are they going to roll this into the Google sites?
Unlikely. I have a feeling that nobody remembers where the code for Google Sites exists.
Okay.
This is aimed at more towards the developer side, since it's a bunch of command line tools. But it's aimed at the designer more than the developer, like myself. So it's aimed at people who are responsible for making websites look good.
And look, I got to put a comment. There's a rule. Anytime Gerwin, who wrote the comment tracker, has a comment, we have to put his comment up, right? Because our beloved Gerwin wrote the program. He says the round template is a square template with a circle cut out.
It's not even with a circle cut out. It's with a flat circle cut out.
As opposed to a 3D circle?
So
Well, no,
Dan,
it's not a real circle. There's a flat side to it.
Okay. Craig, you were...
Before we move on, maybe this is something that David should look at for our websites.
That's exactly what prompted my question. Absolutely. We should look at that because we're dealing with a third party, which makes it easier, but also you don't have control. And Gerwin notes on the round thing, he says that at least in the emulator, there's no differences. The good thing about third parties for reactive, what's the term, Alan?
Responsive.
Responsive websites is that there are many of them and they're inexpensive. However, on scale, we have a lot of clients, and if we could do it in-house and do it well, we'd have complete control. Even though the cost savings would probably be non-existent, or it might even cost us more initially to develop that, but or to have it developed by our team.
I was also thinking about him using this for our main site.
Absolutely, yeah, because we definitely have an issue there, but which we've discussed. So that's exciting news, yeah. And it's also news that Google's made something easier. Okay, anything else on this?
No.
Next up, Google invests, and I'm looking on our, by the way, we share this link in our, don't we? Do we share the thing? I don't know if we do or not, do we? But I'm on the, we have a guide that, and anyone is free to look at it and edit. And one of the things that if, with Google Docs is if one of you trolls it, we can just restore it to the previous version before you destroyed it. Okay, so next up, Google invests $50 million to close the tech gender gap, and I understand that a prominent political daughter is involved in this. What's the story here?
I guess I get to fill this one. So the story here is that Google is, with a number of other companies, pushing the concept that coding is an important skill for people to learn, and it's an important skill for many women to learn, particularly since women are vastly underrepresented in the computer science field. So they're kind of putting a different spin on what it means to write code. And they're pointing out that code doesn't just, it isn't just about building software that shows things on screens. Code is a way of coding something is a way of thinking about how to do something. And to do it, they're launching an initiative where people, girls particularly, are encouraged to write code that actually produces physical objects. The physical objects in this case, I believe, are bracelets and other things along those lines.
And I think also they're pushing things like writing music digitally or 3D printing, just anything, because really the same skill set, as I said before, when IBM was big in Manassas, Virginia, they ran out of computer science degree people to hire. And so they started hiring foreign language students and musicians because it's sort of the same mindset. If you can learn a music language or Spanish really well, then you could learn to code. You've got the same skill set. It's just a different language and a different way of thinking. But that analytical, as opposed to like arts or literature, it's a different mindset. But I think this is awesome just because that is a problem. If you were trying to hire an all-female programming staff of 100, you'd probably have a tough time to find them for a variety of reasons. Which I don't want to get into that topic because that's controversial. And we try to, stay away from anything controversial.
So what do others think about this initiative by Google? Any thoughts from the rest of the panel?
Pam comes to mind.
I actually think it's a great idea. I mean, if you can get women or even pre-teens or teens interested in doing something that they didn't necessarily think of right away as a possibility. I mean, the truth is that sometimes it just never occurs to women to think about going into software development in any way, shape, or form because it's such a male-dominated business or career.
In your case, you're in a scientific industry, right? So you're close. Mm-hmm. But did you in your specific personal case, when you were in high school, you're plotting your career path or whatever you want to be when you grow up, that kind of thing. Did you consider software development? And if so, why or why not? Or if not,
I did, only because my dad has a master's degree in computer science, and that's what he did for a living. And he strongly encouraged me to consider that, and we even had a computer at home in the 80s, early 80s, and he provided all the tools. I just wasn't interested. Since I was a little kid, it was all biology, and that's all I wanted to do. So I was already pretty much set on my own track, but no, he absolutely did encourage me. But that's not, that's probably not even the norm. I did not encourage my kids to do it because they had no interest at all.
See, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think that a lot of women just aren't interested in that field. I mean, that's probably why they're unrepresented there. They don't want to be there. If they wanted to be there, they would be there. A lot of women I know, they get what they want, and that just doesn't happen to be it. So I don't know how Google is going to entice people to do things that they might not otherwise be inclined to do. $50 million doesn't seem like enough money to pull that off, but God bless them if they can do it.
So the other side of that coin, Craig, though, is that maybe this will give them an opportunity to try it to see if they like it. It isn't necessarily, the old stereotype of a 10-year-old kid taking it upon himself to learn how to do something. I mean, if you knew what resources...
with more tools, yes, if they provide them with more tools when they're young, more geared towards this sort of thing, then maybe some of them that have an inclination to pursue that will pursue it.
Might spark the interest, right?
It's possible, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kira Luca says she studied psychology in high school. Cybernaut said, and of course Alan can comment on this because he's a huge Grace Hopper fan. We did a big thing on her. The first coders were primarily women. We were coming around full circle. I wonder, when did it become a boys' club, Alan?
It became a boys' club. Well, we actually have to take one step back even further. The first computers, the term computers, actually referred to the women who were doing the mathematical operations during World War II. They were the computers. We came full circle pretty much when computing became a very heavily academic field, and at the same time became a very hobbyist field. So we had these two paths that each of which independently tended to exclude women, and they didn't completely do so. I'm not trying to say they did, but we had a number of academic fields which were focusing on computing as an academic, and there were very few women in that field. And I'd point out Grace Hopper was not one of those initially. She joined the academic computing industry relatively late. And we had the hobbyists, and the hobbyists were almost exclusively men. And I am not in a position to even begin to understand why. So we're coming full circle only because computing started in World War II, and the women who were involved in World War II were the ones who were available to do it. They needed the men for the warfighting effort, so the women were the one who were playing the role behind the lines, and computing was one of those behind the lines.
Do you think this
And
is sort of like Google
after
Plus,
war,
where the initial
that
people
faded
in?
out.
Do you think it's like
Sorry,
Google Plus initially started out with just Googlers and then friends of Googlers, right? It was an invite-only thing. So it started out with coders. Do you think it's like that? That because it was World War II and the men were fighting, the women weren't allowed to be in combat, so the women were all in support roles, and God bless them because I mean they were building airplanes, all kinds of stuff. Do you think it was that and it just kind of stuck, or do you think it's just there are many like Pam in your
I think that's more. I think that's a big reason for it. It's not the only reason for it, but it's a big reason for it. And it's worth pointing out that Grace Hopper was in the military while she did most of her computing work. So she retired as an admiral. I think that's part of the reason. And I'll be honest, I have not explored in great detail the reasons why women started out and then gradually drifted away from the industry. But I would point to those two things as being the big factors behind it.
I am a former computer programming teacher at the high school and middle school level, and I could tell you that most of my students were male. It was elective course; they could take computer programming or other things. And I'm not sure why, but there were 2 or 3 girls in each class, and a bunch of guys. And some of the girls in it were brilliant. One's gone on to be a major IT person at AT&T, which is exciting. But
I think what's important to understand about this program is that it helps people understand that coding isn't just about sitting down at a computer and typing in piles and piles of unreadable stuff and getting something on the other end that is a highly technical thing, that if you're into that highly technical thing, you'll be excited about it, and if you're not going to be. This is saying that coding does things that you're interested in. If you learn how to code, you learn how to shape the world and shape the environment that you like.
it's a language. It's a language, and if you learn to speak the language, you can say whatever you want. If you learn to code, you can make any kind of website or any kind of program, whatever you want to do.
It's more than just a language. It's a way about approaching problems. And that's really what software development and computer science are all about, are thinking about the ways to solve problems. And they're trying to solve a problem using a specific set of things, namely compilers and computer languages and so forth. But the abstract concept behind computer science is how do you solve problems efficiently? And that's not an easy thing for people to understand, and people who go into the industry don't realize that's what they're doing sometimes. I mean, people will become game developers because they like games, and they'll learn that in order to do game development, you need to do software development. And that's something behind it. So what this is saying is, in the future, if you want to be able to build parts, if you want to be able to build rockets, if you want to be able to construct music, if you want to be able to do things, you need to have the tools to do it. And those tools revolve around code.
Pam, let me ask Pam a question. Pam, do you think it's largely? Do you think there's something to be said about this? Most of these, like mathematics, engineering, coding, computer tech in general, are largely solitary projects. You have to sit there in your cubicle or your office, and you have to stare at the screen. You have to think a lot, and it's not like a group activity. I mean, there are interactions, but it's a lot of it. You're at your computer terminal doing something. Do you think that is that potentially why it's not is that not as appealing to females as to males? Because it's weird, because these are the highest paying careers, and there are plenty of very intelligent women out there, often, in my experience, more intelligent than men. But, what do you think about that?
Well, two things. First, recent studies have come out showing that there are a certain segment of the population are very well suited for these sorts of jobs. And that segment of the population happens to have more males in it than females. That's number one. Number two, if you go into coding and you start doing this for a living, most of them start as children in one way or another, and they form groups where they talk about it, and they do coding sessions together and everything. And if you are the only girl in the group, then that can create issues as well. So if there's not already a coding girls group or a gamers girls group or whatever, then the girls are treated differently, because kids can be mean, right? So girls are treated differently as children or young adults, and so that socially discourages them from pursuing that. So that could be part of it too. It's not that the women don't like this sort of job, and it's not that the women are not introverts or are not suited for this kind of job. It just could be that they're getting these subtle little messages as they go along that kind of discourages them from pursuing it. Now, I happen to know there are plenty of female coders and software engineers on Google+, but predominantly it's male, you know? And
Okay,
so,
so
that's my opinion.
what's interesting, let's contrast this with the military, another historically male-dominated career.
Well, you know, the military had actual rules and regulations that completely segregated the duties of men and women for a long time. So that discouragement wasn't just subtle social cues.
Yeah, it was law.
It was actually the rules. And if you look at Israel, you'll notice that isn't the case necessarily in Israel. Not only that, but Israel has a mandatory service requirement. So all men and women serve unless they are disabled or unable to do so. So yeah, I think that that helps too.
I'm looking at the Air Force demographics here, the Air Force Personnel Center, and it says that currently, I have no idea what it was like before women were allowed in combat roles, but currently it says here gender. Women first entered pilot training in 1976, navigator training in 77, fighter pilot training in 93. Currently, about 19% are women, and 20% of officers are women in the United States Air Force. I would say that is dramatically higher than in your typical coding shop. You're in biotech. Are you like the only woman on the floor, or is it like mainly women, or what's the makeup where you work?
No, actually, my boss is a woman. My coworker on the data governance team is a woman. I'm a woman. All the people in the tech transfer
Clarification
group
there,
are
just-
women. However, all the managers are men. So
You raised an interesting point about the military, Dan. I was just thinking about my graduating class in ROTC, and about half of the graduating class, maybe a touch less, but just a touch, were women, and that was at a time when women could not be fighter pilots. So I'm dating myself now. Although, yeah, so yeah, I would say about how. Yet when I went to my technical training in computers, it was fairly overwhelmingly men in that field in the military.
Interesting, and of course, as Pam points out, historically they were very segregated. I'm sure they are to some degree. I mean, I'm sure like at Camp Lejeune, the men and women aren't in the same dorm room, right? So even though it's thought of it as a male-dominated thing, the women had their own units or platoons, or maybe I don't know how that works. So maybe it was viewed as safer. I don't know. Obviously, smarter people than us are trying to figure this out and fix it, because it's stupid to have.
I mean,
Yeah, I do think the fact that it starts at childhood, right? And the little social. I think we underestimate how important those little social cues are, right? And once there are groups of girls, 9, 8, 9, 10, coding, and doing Python and going in there and making games and doing all this other stuff as a group, then I think you'll see the tides turn, because the truth is women have better attention to detail, according to a lot of studies, and they're uniquely, especially if they have that personality type, they're uniquely qualified to be really good software engineers.
I think that these efforts are good. I mean, the proof is in the pudding and the results. We'll see. But things like, what if there were a Disney show featuring a bunch of girls who wrote computer games and or something like that, to kind of make it cool? And this Goldilocks, they came to prominence because of the controversy with the Beastie Boys video. But I think that's awesome that the female CEO of this company exists to get toys for little girls that are, encourage them to pursue these careers. And it puts us at a big disadvantage as a nation, that over half of our population is from childbirth discouraged from entering these important careers. It just makes the talent pool so much smaller. If women and men were equally interested in pursuing these careers, we would have we wouldn't have to be all H-1B campaigns. We could, have, wouldn't it be great if there were so many more people to choose from who are talented? Because as a former teacher, I can tell you that the women who pursue this are absolutely more organized than the guys. But I was at a military school, and women who would elect to get into a programming class at a military school might be super, super, uber, techie people. I don't know. So that was a small sample. Anything else on this? Okay, so that was our ad for the Air Force, sponsored the last segment there. Just kidding. Okay, so next up is, oh, this is going to be something. I'm going to go to Alan on this, and please clear up any misconceptions, if there are any, like blocking, what blocking we're talking about. But the headline here is YouTube to block independent labels who don't sign up for their new music service. Is that a loaded headline or a fair headline, Mr. Furstenberg?
I'll be honest, I don't know. And I don't know because there are so many people discussing this and so much information flying around that it isn't clear. What the story appears to be, and if any of the panelists understand this better than me, feel free to jump in, is that what we know is, and we've discussed this in the past, is that YouTube is looking to offer a music service attached to YouTube. And it will be a paid service, and exactly what it will entail is unclear, but it sounds like it's going to offer a bunch of things like streaming and downloadable bulk music, tying that to videos, doing a whole bunch of other things. At any rate, they are in the middle of doing licensing deals now with all of the music publishers, which is fine. So that's pretty standard and pretty normal. What seems to be happening, though, is that in talking to indie publishers and indie groups and indie musicians, they're doing two things. The first is they're offering a set of terms which are far worse than any terms that they had been offered previously. And second, they're saying, oh, and if you don't accept our terms, we're going to remove your videos from YouTube. And that's where things start getting complicated, is are they actually saying they're going to remove videos from YouTube, even if it's the indie publisher that put them there and is putting them there for free? Or what's going on? And I don't know. Kadeus, you looked like you were nodding at this before. What's your take on this story?
Well, that's the problem, is that nobody's. It hasn't been clear what's happening. All this is just he said, she said. So it's not really clear what's happening. I don't see them as removing it. Maybe they're saying that they're no longer. To me, if this was me doing this whole entire setup or whatever, maybe we're no longer going to monetize music unless you're within this new whatever they're building.
This reminds me of the Hachette versus Amazon story, where it's kind of speculation and rumors fed by one side or the other to try to impact negotiations. Everyone's under an NDA. We don't really know what the deal is. And
Although I
it
don't
could
think
be
Google-
posturing by the indie labels to get favorable publicity to help in the negotiation tactics. We don't know. So we're speculating. Go ahead, Kadeus.
But if YouTube is doing that, I think we can all agree that is pretty evil.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's something that's not in their usual character. So
it could be that.
so it's
I
not-
mean, what if it's something like this? What if they can? Any artist can. I can write a song, play it on my guitar, and upload it to YouTube and monetize it if it's an original song. I have songs on YouTube now, right? So I don't think they're going to ban that, because I mean, if they banned every music video on YouTube, there'd be like 30% of YouTube left, tattered ruins. It may be that they won't be able to sell
Maybe
videos,
they're only
right?
gonna ban the ones that are decent and leave songs such as the ones that you've performed alone.
Absolutely. But like, it may be that they won't be able to, like some companies can sell their videos, right? Like I bought the Anthony Bourdain series from the Travel Channel. Maybe maybe it's that. Maybe they won't be able to sell products they'll be able to upload and monetize them, but they won't be able to have the 99-cent download type thing unless they agree to the terms of service. And frankly, I don't see what's unusual about a company saying you agree to our terms of service or you can't participate in the program. Everyone
No,
does that.
but I don't understand. But my point is, why do they have to mess around with people that are currently doing their thing? Just leave them alone. Roll out a new program, and if people want to come into that program and participate in it, fine. But I mean, don't roll out a program and then start taking away something that other people have gotten used to and are using. Of course, you can do that, right? It's their sandbox. They can make whatever rules they want, and we play in it or we don't. But I just don't think it's a good idea to mess around with something that somebody's already got a good thing going on. And
I'm guessing they're holding out because, and then Alan, I'm guessing they're holding out because Beyonce can make a lot of money at 99 cents a song, but some indie label might only sell, 300 or 3,000, might have a tougher time, so they're trying to hold out for a bigger
But
payout.
here's the argument, and here's the argument that the indie labels are making, is that indie labels as a whole account for 33% of the sales, which is, yes, an individual might not account for a lot, but as a group, they account for a substantial amount, and as a group, they should be treated the same way that the other 66% of the market is being treated. And once again, folks, mark your calendars. Here's where I agree with Craig again. I can understand Google saying, hey, we're going to take this chunk of money from you. If you go with this program, take it or leave it. But don't then say, oh, and if you say you're going to leave it, we're not going to let you go on YouTube and advertise on YouTube. That's a bit disingenuous.
Yeah, but we don't even know if that's really what transpired.
This is true. We don't.
I can't imagine, just from a PR standpoint, that they would do that.
My understanding about it was that they were blocking them from the benefits of the program, of them, the premium area that I didn't get the understanding from, many others, interpretation of it from regular YouTube and all of YouTube service itself, I just got that aspect from blocking them from areas of the premium area. I don't know.
And that could be. The impression that I saw at least one place was referring to YouTube advertising. That some of the indies are making their money from from the ads that show up on YouTube. Now, as Kade's pointed out, I don't know for sure, and I don't understand this mess. As for YouTube and Google doing something stupid like this, really, Dan? You can't see them doing something stupid like this?
Yeah, I was going to say.
How many years have you been covering? How many years have you been covering Google?
We just talked about that huge fiasco recently about wasn't it Bren that threw Google Plus under the bus? I mean, come on. I mean, they've got PR blunders.
No,
This is
that's
that level.
bullshit. That's bullshit. What he said was that he shouldn't have been involved in it, and I guess he was reflecting on some of the things that he suggested that were dumb. But the most prominent thing he suggested was Hangouts, which was their killer feature. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Mr. Ship.
What are you talking about? He basically said it was a mistake.
No, it
And
was a
then he
mistake
didn't
for
go
him
on.
to be
He
involved. Not that
didn't-
the
he
thing
didn't
was a
go
mistake.
on. He didn't go on to say, but we've got great people in place now, and we're ramping things up, and this thing is going to be fantastic. He didn't say any of that.
That's
He's
the reason
right.
they only roll him
Right.
out every 6 months to speak.
Sounds like
Can I-
deja vu to me.
How did we end up with last week?
Can I cut you off here because I really don't
Just
see the
giving an
two as one.
example of bad PR.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead,
they're
Alan.
bad PR, and they're shooting yourself in the foot with your practices. And that may have been bad PR, and I really don't want to rehash it. But this is implementing policy that's shooting yourself in the foot. And if we want to cite examples, I will talk about things that I've been talking about for the past 2.5 years, which are policies that they implemented to shoot themselves in the foot. Things like killing Google Reader, things like the real name policy, a bunch of other things that may have been well guided and well intentioned, but which ended up alienating their core. And here's a place where it sounds like they're alienating 33% of their customers. Michael, go ahead.
I agree mostly with all this except the real name policy, but we've already had that one as well.
Okay, anything else on this? Welcome, Brad from Tech Webcast. All right, he's peeing or something. All right, so next up is this story here. Fred Goodwin's house removed from Google Street View. This is an article from The Guardian. The ex-RBS chief's house, as well as those of his direct neighbors, are no longer visible on the mapping service. What's this about? Okay.
It's unclear.
This is-
Basically, what it's saying, what the story seems to be, is that the former head of the Royal Bank of Scotland, his house appears to be is apparently no longer visible on Google Street View. It's not clear if this was because he requested it. It's not clear if this is because of glitch. It's not clear why. Or if this is related to the right to be forgotten law. But this is the sort of thing, this is the sort of question that may someday be asked, is, if a banker, if somebody who's been involved in a scandal requests that their information disappear from Google, and there's now no longer an image on the Street View, is that going to do anything whatsoever?
And my answer to you is absolutely, positively not. And here's my reason why. I have no idea who this guy is. I've never heard of him until just this moment. Well, not just this moment, until I read the article in the document.
Well, to be honest, Anthony,
so
let me, if you'd like, I'll give an analogy.
well, I just wanted to make a point, real, maybe not so quick, but so I have no idea who this guy was. So I did a search on Google for his address, and of course I couldn't find him. But there was a image of a Google map with the Street View, the blue lines, where you can and can't see street views with the white, where you couldn't see his house. And all the street names were blurred out. So obviously I couldn't do a search based on, the street names, right? Because I don't know what the street names are. But I do know the city that he lives in, and I saw there was a hospital icon. I found the hospitals in the area based on geographic, area, lakes and such and road layouts. I found his house. And I want to put up the my screen real quick. So here's a satellite view of his house. It took me like 2-3 minutes to find it. But my point is, you go to Bing Maps and you can still see the bird's eye view. So sure, you can't do a street view of his house anymore, but you can do just about as good or maybe better depending on what you want to see. So I guess the bottom line is there's no privacy online, and especially when you draw attention to yourself, you're just creating more attention.
Well, ignoring the Streisand effect issues. But what if there was a case, and this, some of it goes into implementation, but presumably if some person wanted to have themselves erased, they could go to Google and Bing and Nokia and say, erase me from your maps. And that's, a pretty good coverage there of getting yourself erased.
Right.
Okay. Wonderful story. Next one, Dan.
Okay, next up is this very interesting story here. Kind of crazy. This is from the Wall Street, New York Times. A Canadian judge says Google must remove links worldwide. What basically, there were two companies that were in a dispute over technology. They used to be working together. They would sell the stuff. It's EQ, I don't know how to pronounce it, EQ-Stec, and another company called Datalink, which sold the products under its name. So EQ-Stec was the manufacturer. It's a device that allowed industrial machines made by different manufacturers. They use different software to communicate with each other. So the companies got along for a while, then they had a bad falling out, and then EQ-Stec accused Datalink of stealing its technology to create its own device, which it sells through the internet. So Datalink has apparently left Canada. No one knows where they are, or at least the parties in the lawsuit don't know where they are. And the original manufacturer won a ruling saying that this company was violating agreements and illegally selling their product largely online. And so a judge ruled that Google Canada had to remove the web addresses related to Datalink. But what was going on is that they would quickly make new sites, because you can, in 5 minutes put up a website, copy paste, get a new domain done. And then but now the judge has said that they have to remove the Datalink search results from all Google sites, not just in Canada. So a Canadian judge is trying to dictate to Google that worldwide they have to do something. That's crazy. And then another interesting part here is that Professor Guy said he was puzzled that the order involves Google and no other web search provider like Bing, making the information still easily available, which goes to show you that nobody uses Bing. I just wanted to get that dig in there. If this is possible, then Alan, this is like now in this case it sounds like the company's getting screwed, and this seems sort of legit, but not really, but kind of. Could an Afghan judge order Google to worldwide remove all pictures of women not wearing a burqa?
Well, that's the concern, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really
a French Canadian judge ruling that they have to have, or a French judge ruling that all websites on Google have to be
right
bilingual.
Yeah. Or a Canadian court ruling that it needs to be made available in all of the First Nations languages. Yeah, it's a totally unreasonable requirement, and furthermore, I think it's of incredibly bad legal footing. It's like saying, you're essentially telling a company that the way it does its business, or not even, you're telling a company that does not exist in your country that it has to do something for every other country. I don't know. It fundamentally boils down to they've made a ruling that doesn't apply at all to Canada. It applies to the rest of the world, and that's just bogus.
Even China hasn't tried something like this. Remove Tiananmen Square reference. I mean, this is
The reason why
insane.
China hasn't tried something like this is because international law doesn't allow it.
Do we know that?
I'm reasonably certain that international law doesn't allow it. International law comes into effect in transition between nations, in the same way that federal law comes into transition between states.
Okay, so let me ask Brad from Tech Webcast. Welcome, Brad. How are you, sir? Is he back?
I am good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Do you think that a judge in British Columbia, given the circumstance of this case, where it appears that there's a company that is screwing another company and they're in hiding now and they're selling intellectual property, products based on intellectual property from the original company without authorization and basically ripping, this company off. But do you think a Canadian judge should be allowed to order a worldwide deletion of search results from Google? Or do you think that a judge in Australia or Canada or China should only have jurisdiction where they have jurisdiction?
I really don't know, mate. I haven't really been following the story.
Okay. All right.
I don't have it.
Now,
have an answer.
you have your own tech show. Tell us about that real quick. Where can folks find you, and what do you do, and when is it on?
Yeah, it's on every Saturday at 12 p.m. It's live on techwebcast.info. And we have a guest on each week. We had Renee Ritchie on last week
Awesome.
from imore.com.
Anything big going on in Australia?
Not really, mate.
There's something going on. Interesting,
Not
like
really. It's cold.
escape kangaroo
really-
story or something?
No, not really.
Okay. What's the newest gadget you've bought?
No, not for a long. Probably my iPad. That's the last thing I bought. The iPad.
Now, you went to an Android phone, then you switched, right? Switched
I
back
did,
to
mate. I
Apple.
had it for. I completely hated it.
It's a shame Craig left.
Yeah. Shame.
Okay.
So yeah, good show by the way, Dan. Lovely
Thanks.
show, mate. Watch it every week.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Techwebcast.info. That's the show.
Yes, it is.
The best and most widely listened to tech show from down under. And
Yes, yep.
awesome. Check it out. It's great. I've been
Thanks,
on it
man.
a couple times, and it's awesome. It's always a fun experience, and it's great to listen to.
Yeah, definitely. It's always
Brett-
fun recording the podcast.
And Brad doesn't take any crap, so sometimes there's eruptions which make the show. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so anything else on this story about Canada? Anybody want to weigh in? Okay. Yeah, bottom line is, I mean, courts have jurisdiction, right? And governments have jurisdiction, and you can't tell another country what to do. That's crazy. This judge is out of control. Okay, so next up is Google Fiber rally adds 8-second chance Kansas City neighborhoods. This is from kansascity.com. And it says that Google's website showed that 21 neighborhoods given a second shot to qualify. Most fell short by a midnight deadline. But some qualified. All the Kansas City and Gladstone in the eastern part qualified. They marketed their service with now or never sign-up periods and said it would only stretch its network into neighborhoods where enough customers sign up for the service to justify the company's construction expenses. So that cost savings approach has been central to their business plan. And interesting here, the model differs from what cable companies faced years ago when municipal franchise agreements typically required building across an entire city. But now it's different because almost, in all these places there is an incumbent internet provider. Google is the second arrival, so it's not like everyone's going to sign up for them because there's already an option. Whereas when the cable companies initially built out, there was no other option. So any thoughts on this? Cadeas, you obviously have some experience here, having lived in Kansas, and you were a Google Fiber customer. I guess you were living with your aunt who was a customer, or what's the story there? And
No, I wasn't a customer. My aunt and grandmother. My aunt actually has it. My grandmother lived in an area where she could get it. So, probably the thing that's probably more interesting is that they've realized that the areas that they're targeting, the reason why people aren't signing up is because of they like to say demographics. So I like that they decided to, with the free service, they decided to kill the construction costs and break it up into 12 payments for $25. Did you see that? So that's kind of what's going to happen to try to push them to go ahead and sign up.
that was
So
the whole
basically-
thing, yeah, because I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That was a challenge. They literally hired people to go door to door and try to get people to sign up, but they found all these things. They found in the lower income areas, they found that people wouldn't pay the construction costs because they were often renters, and they're like, well, why am I going to pay for this? Because I might be moving in 6 months. And also, some didn't see a value proposition. And the other problem they have is that I got DSL for $19 a month from the phone company or whatever it is, and that's fine for Facebook and my email and looking at my Netflix or whatever. And they didn't see the value proposition here.
And what cracks me up is that they say it's a now or never kind of scenario. So it sounds like Google's like, if we don't get it this time around, we're just going to move on to another city. That's pretty much what I get from that. Now,
Of
your
course,
last
the
chance
other-
to sign up. We're not going to build out anymore after this. This is our last build out.
Of course, the other thing is, for low-income families, a lump sum of hundreds of dollars is a big deal. But, $25 a month, even though it's the same amount of money in the long run, isn't necessarily, a deal breaker. So you can
And keep
afford
in mind the
$25 a month. You can't afford, I don't know what it is, but $500 in one sitting.
Keep in mind the areas that they were targeting are areas where people don't have enough money to even get a computer. So why would they need an internet service? So they rolled this out totally wrong, and I guess they looked for city governments that would work with them easier more than looking for a customer base to actually sign up. And that's kind of what I get from analyzing the whole Google Fiber saga, is that they look for an area that would be up and off with no questions, as opposed to trying to do it and dealing with California PUC or whoever else to try to get this stuff rolled out in these areas. And so it's kind of bad for them.
Any other thoughts on this? Okay. All right. Next up is this is a fun story. In New Zealand, landing a Google Loon, one of their internet providing balloons that's undergoing testing now. I think they said this was going to be used in Africa and other emerging areas to provide internet from balloons. So one crashed, and apparently all hell broke loose. So it said one of the Wi-Fi enabling balloons caused a panic in New Zealand Friday when it was mistaken for a crashing plane. They've been testing their balloons, part of a trial known as Project Loon, in the lower South Island of New Zealand this week, when one was mistaken for a crashing plane. So emergency services were called. Someone said that they saw the plane crash off the east coast of South Island. A rescue helicopter was sent to the site, but rather than finding the wreckage of a plane, one of the internet giant's large balloons was located. And then it says, since launching Project Loon in New Zealand last year, we've continued to do research, flights to improve the technology. Said they've coordinated with local traffic control authorities, and there was a team dedicated to recovering the balloons when they land. So I guess it was like a local 911 outfit. It wasn't in the loop or the loon, I guess. So, you know, that happened. What do you think? What do you guys think about Project Loon?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting when when they launch it over, you know, some African country. I mean, if it crashes, and the people are like, you know, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I mean, it's gonna definitely be interesting. The whole point is to provide service to these remote areas, and you know, we all know how well Google markets their stuff. I can't imagine that that it's going to it's probably going to cause quite a stir when it happens in some, you know, Serengeti plane or something like that, right?
I can't imagine that these balloons routinely fall out of the sky. This sounds like a freak accident to me. I mean, I don't know anything about hot air balloons or, you know, like weather-related balloons, which is what this seems more like. But yeah, I don't imagine that these type of balloons just fall out of the sky, like, you know, randomly. Like, you know, people get into car accidents, you know, planes crash. The balloons fall out of the sky even less than, you know, planes fall out of the sky.
Well, and they're testing it, so you know, the story didn't really go into why it landed. So who knows? Maybe they'll perfect it later on. The whole point of this balloon is for it to stay in suborbit. So you know, hopefully they'll be able to fix whatever it is. Or maybe it was a planned landing, and, you know, like Dan said, it just didn't get to the
landing site.
To the 911 agency. They forgot to alert the local authorities. So yeah, maybe it was something like that.
Okay. See, that could be the solution to Anthony Clouser's Wi-Fi problems. Google Loon. All right, so next up, anything else on this? Okay. All right, next up is just a fun little story here. A Google employee, his daughter, we're not sure, like, if he did this with the parents. Oh, I love this. Roswell all over again, Cybernaut, about the Loon story. Oh my God! Can you imagine if, like, that? Remember that tribe that was like had never had human contact in Brazil? It was all over the internet like a couple years ago. Can you imagine if some freaking balloons, you know, lands right in the middle of their seance or whatever the hell they do? They'd freak. Oh my God! Oh my God! We're gonna ruin an entire culture. All right. So next up, a daughter. How old was she? Okay, we don't know how old she was. But a little kid, right? So here's the letter. Dear Google worker, can you please make sure when Daddy goes to work, he gets one day off? Like he can get a day off on Wednesday because Daddy only gets a day off on Saturday. From Katie. P.S. It is Daddy's birthday. P.P.S. It is summer, you know. And so they got a response back from Google. Dear Katie, thank you for your thoughtful note and request. Your father's been hard at work designing many beautiful and delightful things for Google and millions of people across the globe. On the occasion of his birthday and recognizing the importance of taking some Wednesdays off during the summer, we are giving him the whole first week of July as vacation time. So this is a cute story. Does anyone believe this is genuine?
I do.
It's genuine.
as I say, I do believe it because they asked if it was real, and Google said yes, it was. They confirmed that it was a real story. So I
Craig,
do believe it's real.
Craig, I understand
And-
you have the policy, right?
Yeah,
When your
well, and they
staffers can
said-
take a week off at any time.
Well, yeah, there was a PS on that letter. PS, and when he gets back after his vacation, he's going to be demoted and loaded up with double the workload before the vacation.
And they said
Well-
vacation, so they're probably going to charge it against the vacation time, right?
There's no free lunch, folks. Sorry.
when I come back from vacation, that's why I rarely take more than a day or two at a time, because when I get back,
You have all the work waiting for you.
yeah, exactly. I'm more stressed
There you
than
go.
it was when I left.
There is no free lunch. Unless you work for Area Guides.
Then you can go on vacation anytime you
Oh
want.
my gosh.
Couple weeks, antiquing.
Yeah, what the heck? It's
Um,
pathetic.
Yeah, they think we're joking.
Work ethic, what's that?
As soon as I'm done with this video game, we can discuss that, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this? This controversy about the week's vacation. Yeah, that's a nice PR story. All right, so here we go with the Google buses. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle. It says
So instead of San Francisco banning the corporate buses, now they're going to carve out bus stops next to existing bus stops and take up parking spaces for commuters to accommodate these corporate shuttles. So that's
Pam, can
probably-
you? Yeah, this is insane. Can you do me a favor? Can you kind of explain what this is about, but put it in context for folks who aren't aware of the drama, and there are protests and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Will I go pee?
yes.
I mean,
So-
will I go
yeah.
fix some technical issues?
Yeah. So the controversy started when Google and Facebook and a couple of other large corporations in the area that I
Apple.
can't. Apple?
I think.
Yeah. All started running their own shuttles to get their employees to work. And the shuttles were allowed to use mass transit's bus stops. But the general public were not allowed to ride these corporate shuttles, but they were using public transportation's bus stops. So this created this big controversy because now that the employees don't have to pay for the mass transit, then of course they're not going to expand the service. They're not going to run more shuttles or more buses. They're not going to do a lot of things that would help everybody, because these corporations are basically taking away customers, paying customers that would pay for these additional services. So they had protests and this is horrible for the city, it's killing mass transit and all that. And so instead of listening to the people, the city of San Francisco has decided to expand the corporate shuttle program and use commuter parking to accommodate these corporate shuttles. So now the truth is a 45-foot corporate shuttle, if it's even that big, is not really going to take up more than 4 or 5, maybe 6 parking spots. But it's the principle of the thing rather than anything else. And I'm sure that this is just going to further the ire of the people protesting.
Okay, so let me interject this. I used to have a newspaper in Lynchburg, the Lynchburg Times, featured on Fox's Touch with Kiefer Sutherland. And what they did for the Liberty University, I talked to Jerry Falwell, the chancellor, Jerry Falwell Jr. And what they did was they allowed their students to ride the buses for free, and they would just show their student ID. They could ride any city bus for free, and the municipal buses would just keep track of how many they did, and they negotiated a special rate or whatever because there were so many of them, and they just paid the city. I think it was millions a year. So that didn't cause extra buses, because it's, having two half-empty buses is not as good as having one full bus, right? But then you'd have to mingle with the natives, right? And you wouldn't have Wi-Fi and stuff. But what if Google spent money to improve the city buses that are existing and put Wi-Fi and stuff on them and put their employees on those buses and just said, show your employee badge, you keep track of it, and we'll pay X amount, and then everyone would benefit. There'd be fewer buses, because the whole point of putting people on buses is because there's less traffic congestion and it's convenient, and your employees don't have to drive, you don't have to build a bunch of parking spaces. I think that could be a potential solution. Do you think, Pam?
Yeah, I mean, there probably are a slew of potential solutions, but then the point would be, well, now our bus schedules are dictated by the evil corporations, and if Apple wants
Can I say
everyone
something?
there at a certain time, then they're going to change the bus schedules, which might inconvenience paying customers.
Yeah, I'd just like to say these people are absolutely ridiculous. Like Dan was.
No, wait, which people?
Like Dan was saying, companies across, in all different cities, the companies will pay the city bus companies in order to accommodate their employees. I know in Rochester, a whole bunch of Rochester companies do that. I know that the University of Rochester both pays the bus company to take their students and their staff. And in addition to that, I know that the University of Rochester actually has their own buses that in addition to the city buses. So I mean, these people are very clearly just they're screaming about something because they're upset about something that probably has little or completely nothing to do with what they're screaming about. And
it's political correctness, Anthony.
Also, let's not kid ourselves, Anthony. Bring up that this is not really about the buses. This is about their resentment of the.
Because those shelters can accommodate both the stupid city buses and the company buses. I mean, let's get to the bottom line. Let's use some logic here.
This has to be a quandary for these liberals out there, because normally they want buses, right? They want everybody to ride around in buses because they're more efficient than everybody having cars. And yet here's a situation where a corporation is putting a bus out there and loading it up with people and shuttling the people to work, which ostensibly is more efficient than all of them driving in their separate cars, although I don't know that it really is, but that's the claim. And yet
he froze.
Lash out anyway.
Can you hear him?
Yeah, Craig, hang on. Your
I don't know.
Your Wi-Fi is messed up, or you're
muted.
Now there's no.
I mean, we can hear you, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, go, Craig. Why don't you refresh real quick? And while you're doing that, I'll just interject that this is a situation where the actual target is not the buses. These folks are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, because you're in California and you know more about this than I do, but in general, these folks are upset in general at the fact that real estate pricing has gone up and other things, because of the influx of tech companies into the San Francisco and Mountain View area. And so they found a convenient target here, because if you look at this logically, it makes sense that companies to free up the roads would do buses to, pack their folks in like cattle and get them to and from work. And it's not logical to oppose that. And then they said that they weren't paying for the bus stops. And so then Cybernaut says, I'm under the assumption that the mass transit system is getting reimbursed in some way for these privileges. Yeah, they recently did that. They said they would pay so much per stop or whatever. You want to update us on that, Pam?
Okay, I don't know the exact amounts or anything, but initially when they started testing the program, it was not subject to any kind of reimbursement. You can use the bus stops because it benefits the highway system and it benefits the parking problems and all that stuff to pack 200 or 300, 400 people per company onto these buses, and then take them off the roads and all that stuff and park them all in one area. So it does benefit the city as a whole. So there was no reimbursement in the beginning, but when all this crap started happening, the companies actually offered to pay for the privilege. So it wasn't then they started bitching about something else. So yeah, I do think that they aren't happy that there's tech companies there, but they don't realize that there's a fine balance.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
So the bottom line is these people that are protesting don't have jobs or have low-paying jobs, and they resent the fact that these other people have high-paying jobs. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's part of it, because the high-paying jobs and the number of high-paying jobs puts the demand for real estate, and I have no idea how much you know about the demographics. I mean, the topography of San Francisco, the limited amount of space.
Very limited amount of space, and plus the building laws and regulations, they can't build.
Right.
And so,
because
that's
it's a huge earthquake. Right, it is supply and
that's
demand.
Supply and demand.
But realize, Craig, that in order to support all these high-paying jobs, you have to have people willing to work at the Burger King and the dry cleaners and the grocery stores and things like that. And where are those people going to live? They have to move. They have to go.
Yeah, but ultimately it will benefit all of those people, because they'll have to pay all of those people more money. Because if they have a problem again with getting help, again, it's supply and demand. If help is hard to get, then that means you have to pay them more money. And so it'll drive everybody's salaries up. And so in the long run, everybody wins. Or they could have Detroit, right, where everybody loses. They can make their choice. Do you want everybody to lose and nobody to be there making any money and have a freaking slum? Or do you want everybody to make more money? I would choose everybody making more money. But
right, but when I say the housing prices go up, what I mean is an average 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage is well over $1 million, and in order to work at the grocery store and to be able to afford to live close enough to my job to get there in 2 hours, right? I have to take a mass transit, and if the bus doesn't go on my schedule because there's not enough people riding the bus because they're all riding the Google bus, I can see where.
Well, but Pam, if you end up not working there, if you end up saying I've got to move somewhere else because I can no longer afford to be here, then that's one less worker that moves out, and therefore the workers that are left again are going to be fewer of them, right? So they're going to be able to command higher salaries. So the ones that end up staying are going to benefit. The ones that leave, they go somewhere else. We have a free country. They can go anywhere. They can go to South Carolina if they want.
That's true. That's true. but when a banana costs $5, you know, that person's higher wage means jack shit, right? So
Well, they-
as
but-
the wages get, as it's supply and demand, as the wages
That's
get
right.
higher, so does the cost
Pam.
of goods, right?
Pam,
So
here's
then
the
my
deal.
wage,
They
my
don't-
wage hike means nothing.
Yeah, but here's the deal. They don't have to stay there.
But that's what you're saying.
They
You're
don't
saying
have to work.
one less worker. Well, yeah, you can suddenly have 0 workers, and the
Then
only
the
way
rich
you can
people
get
will
someone
leave.
in.
Then the rich people won't stay there because they won't have the service, and so the you know it will self-correct, because what happens is, and there are cities that are more expensive to live in than San Francisco, Tokyo, for example.
It will self-correct. It will self-correct, but we're talking these people are having a problem now. So the self-correction isn't going to happen for 10, 15 years, right? So
Well,
right now
but-
they're having issues.
Well, because I have an issue, because I can't get a job, because I'm too lazy to work, or whatever my issue is, doesn't mean I should stand in front of the bus and not let the bus go down the freaking road.
Right,
Get
but
out of the way.
it also means I don't make enough money to be able to both live and work and save
And
to
you're not-
move.
and they're not going to do that. That's right. If they're standing there on the side of the road picketing with signs and so forth, then they're probably not going to be making money. That's correct. And if they don't have a job, they're probably not going to be making money. Probably true.
I think they have money.
Go ahead,
I
Brad.
think they have a job. They just don't have the ability to move at this point because they don't have the ability to save money to move.
Go ahead, Brad.
Craig, have you been to Detroit before?
Oh, yeah. Been there a couple times.
What's it like?
It used to be very nice, and now there's a lot of areas that are in bad shape. There are still some areas that are pretty nice. Believe it or not, there are a few neighborhoods there that are pretty much untouched by all the blight and everything that's happened there. Only a few.
Okay.
And if you go on YouTube, you can Google it and you can find there's tours, virtual tours, and all of some of the neighborhoods that have held up that are fine. But a lot of it is in a very bad state, and for reasons just like this. The haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots ended up driving out the haves, and they took their money and left, and you end up with a wasteland.
Well, you know they film a TV show there, right?
What TV show?
It's called Hardcore Porn.
It's filmed in Detroit?
Yep, at a store there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know about that one, but anyway, there's a lot about Detroit. If you just go on YouTube and put in keyword Detroit, there's all kinds of videos about the decline of Detroit, and it's not just Detroit; it's a lot of cities.
Well, it has been cleaned up a lot, though. It's been cleaned up a lot there over there.
It's still pretty bad. I wouldn't buy real estate there.
It'd be a
should.
bargain. It'd be a
Dirt
bargain.
cheap. I mean, it's dirt cheap. If you want to buy a house, you can buy a house dirt cheap there.
And does it come with a bunch of guns, like a missile launcher, so you can protect yourself?
It's a problem, and a friend of mine wanted to buy a place up there. He wanted to buy a real nice Tudor up there. It was a huge place, beautiful place, and I mean, he just said there's just no way that he could keep it maintained without people coming in there and burglarizing and everything, and he finally gave up on the whole idea. It's a problem up there.
All right, a couple comments, and then I want to transition to our next topic, which is related. At least a side link is. Cybernaut says Craig is unfamiliar with the Burger King pay scale, and because all the minimum wage workers have the money to relocate to somewhere where they can make minimum wage and can afford to buy actual food and housing, no one in Silicon Valley that works in a Burger King is living there. They commute.
Yeah, I worked at Burger Chef back in the day, and
You were
Yeah,
lower
that-
than Burger King.
that takes you back. But yeah, I worked at McDonald's. I worked the closing shift, and I'm familiar with the pay scale of places like that. And there are people that work there and end up that being their career, and some of them end up owning a McDonald's franchise and do fine. It all comes down to if people are willing to work. If you're willing to work hard, there's employers out there that are willing to hire you and are willing to pay you money. It's as simple as that. And the people that work hard, guess what? They end up succeeding. Funny thing happens that way.
Cause and effect, and bootstraps are involved. Okay, so next up is this Kevin Rose story. In the story about this house from 1892 in Portland, there's a link here. If you click here, I'm going to look here. It says oh gosh, where is it? That there was a protest. I'll just go to it. I can't find it, but it's a CNN story we covered before. Anti-tech protesters target Google executive, and we're talking about Kevin Rose, the founder of Dig, and a popular former, I think he was a tech TV host. So what they did, they put this flyer up in his neighborhood. It said "Parasite. Greetings, your neighbor at hidden address. A man named Kevin Rose is a parasite, perhaps not of you, but of us. This is why we are here to reveal him for what he is. As a partner venture capitalist at Google Ventures, Kevin directs the flow of capital from Google into the tech startup bubble that is destroying San Francisco. The startups that he funds bring the swarms of young entrepreneurs that have ravaged the landscapes of San Francisco and Oakland. With each new tech corporation comes a wave of fresh techies who, on average, earn 4 times more than a normal service worker. We are the ones who serve them coffee, deliver them food, and then I imagine some vulgar thing, watch their kids and mop their floors. Nearly all of them are just like Kevin Rose, and we are tired of this miserable and untenable situation. So can you imagine, Craig?
I bet Detroit would love to have all those people coming into town.
Oh, I'm sure. But can you imagine if in your neighborhood, right, if protesters show up and pass flyers like this out? Pam, clearly this is, I always say this, I'm a big First Amendment guy, right? I'm a newspaper publisher. I'm pro First Amendment. I'm pro freedom of speech. If you want to write a letter to the editor or do an online video stating your opinions or have a rally on Main Street, God bless you. That's the American way. That's our very First Amendment right. The very first one that they did said you could do that. But these people are insane, and you should be able to go home from work and not have this kind of thing going on. It's not like this guy, was a guard at Auschwitz. What the hell?
So who gets to determine what topic is okay to be outraged over, right? They're outraged over the fact that this guy paid $1.3 million for a house built in 1892.
Oh, okay. If we're going to go to the house thing, we got to do. I was talking about this flyer as a transition topic.
The protest is because of this house, right?
No, this was this was ancillary. This was a previous incident a few months ago, where they were complaining about. So let me transition to the house. So he bought this house. Kevin Rose plans to demolish an 1892 house in Portland. He said that unfortunately we drastically underestimated the level of work required to bring it up to date. We were shocked at the price tag for repairs and remodel, which totaled more than we paid for the house and far, far more than it would ever be worth. And then a realtor said, I would say it's in above average condition for a house in Willamette Heights and a very good condition for an 1892 house. We did expect him to do a substantial remodel, but you pay $1.3 million and tear down a house in Portland. That doesn't happen in Portland. And then it says it's not clear why he bought the house or if he and his wife plan to move there, probably to escape the flyers mentioned here in the previous story, to get the hell out of San Francisco, because largely you can conduct these jobs from anywhere. But this is a question of what is the value of an historic structure and what is the value of basic property rights. So go ahead, Pam, and then Cadeas and or Craig.
It really depends. The house is, as far as I can tell, the house was not. It is. Okay, so the property was included on a historic property inventory, but was removed to clear the way for the demolition permit. So there's the money talking right there.
That
So
is
it was
basically-
a historic landmark, and someone paid for that to be removed so that he could tear down the house.
paid and or lobbied, whatever, but it's basically a decision of the zoning, the folks. I mean, if you can get your zoning changed on your land and they change the zoning, I mean, if somebody's going to complain, they should be complaining to the zoning people for caving in and changing it. By the way, Dan, I just shared a photo in the chat, and this is how we deal with protesters or anybody that comes up into Thurmont, into our little town here. This is how we deal with them on that photo that I just shared. We don't put up with a lot of nonsense here in town. So that's what they need to do down in San Francisco when they start wanting to get in front of one of those buses. Just bring the riot crews in and take care of them.
We know that doesn't work in that part of California. Come on now.
Craig, can you put in the pop-up chat?
This many years.
Say again, Dan?
Can you put it in the pop-up chat so I can share it with the audience? If it's funny, unless it's vulgar.
No, it's not. I mean, you can't copy and paste out of the chat?
It's two different computers. I can't physically do that.
Okay, let me
The
see if
streaming
I can
computer's
figure out
different.
how to do the pop-up chat here.
Just go to Google Plus and you'll see a pop-up. Cadeas, can you get ready to intro the next story for me, please? Because I'm out of my league initially.
So are we done with this story?
So we all agree that all the tech companies just need to get the hell out of San Francisco
so
ASAP, right?
Just so you know, he also said that he's offered
And
to
not
sell
just
the
tech
house
with
back
mon-
to the previous owners at the same price plus the expenses incurred since. Previous
I
owner
think that-
James
I'm
Dodd-
sorry. Go ahead, Pam.
Dodd didn't return a phone call from Bergonian, but said in a comment on the petition that he would be responding shortly. Your willingness to consider other options is appreciated, and we will see where that may lead. Okay, I just want to put that in there. He's not saying that he's not big bad evil Kevin Rose, but he did offer to sell it back.
Craig, can you put that Flickr link in the
I did. I just put it in the...
Google Plus Week pop-up chat?
Yeah, it says you're in a video call with, and it's got all the thumbnails of the people, and I put it in that.
Wonder why I
Is
don't
that where
see
I'm
it.
supposed to
Did
put
you
it?
hit enter afterward?
Yeah.
Are you on a Mac?
It's showing up there, and it says, and it's got a comment from Brad below it. Thanks for having me on, Dan. I'll come back later, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's acting like it's in there. You can't see it?
I'm looking here at there's a Google Plus Week 6/20/2014. It should be the top.
I mean, it says you're in a video call, and it's got all our thumbnails. Cadeas's thumbnail, your thumbnail. I mean, I think it's the right one.
Oh, so there's multiple ones here.
Yeah, I think
Jesus.
there are.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's go here.
I think there's 5 of them.
Yeah, that's is that in Thurmont?
Yeah, that's in Thurmont. That's when they came in here and they wanted to shake things up a little bit, and we had a little something for them.
What's actually going on here?
It was the few protesters came into town.
Like a half dozen or something, and so.
Yeah. Half dozen nonviolent.
Yeah, you live in the safest place in the world, probably outside of the green zone in Iraq, former green zone or whatever. Because
This is an armed camp.
it's
Anybody comes into here, we got a little something for them.
yeah, it's the entrance to Camp David where the president is. So if anyone just randomly let's go drive through Thurmont, like SWAT team and helicopters will descend upon them, and
Yeah, they got a little something for them.
yeah, anytime you're going through Thurmont, you want to allow an extra 45 minutes commute time for a cavity search and your glove box, the whole deal, the mirrors under the car and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good day. You want to come in here and try to cause trouble, or even just come in here and see the sights. Either one.
Okay, so all right, so what's the story with this? Can you do this, Cadeas?
I know very little about quantum computing. I'm sorry.
Didn't you watch that movie?
No, I didn't watch that movie, whatever that movie is.
I think it
but
was by
basically,
Michael
it sounds
Crichton,
like
wasn't it? What's the deal?
No, my understanding on the quantum computing is basically they found a way to do the speed up. Looks like so. Basically, the understanding is quantum computing makes it so things that you need to process that would take years would only take minutes with this, and it's supposed to gradually grow as the problem gets more complex. But I guess they are running into some hardware issues. Looks like. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It didn't really go into what type of hardware issues it was having, looks like.
This is the thing that, what was that guy's name? Ray Kurzweil, is that his name? The guy that did The Singularity, wrote the book, The Singularity. I think he's got the website, thesingularity.com. And his whole thing was eventually, and this goes back to your programming discussions that you had earlier too, his whole thing was eventually the computers are going to get powerful enough and good enough that the computer invents the next computer, and that the computer writes its own programs and so on and so forth. And he said when we get to that point, then we basically reach the singularity where this just totally explodes, and the speed of everything, of new developments and so forth, just is a geometric progression. And then, of course, we have the Terminator thing, right, where the machines then turn on us. That's the ultimate where we end up. But yeah, if they get to the point where these computers think on their own and invent the next computer, then we don't need any more programmers. That'll be another job that will have been outsourced.
Okay. So this is basically saying that right now, with the way things are going, they can't prove that a speed up is actually happening. And so because they can't prove that this is useful, it looks as though they're not going to, I mean, basically you can't justify someone paying for a quantum computer versus a normal computer, the classical device as they refer to it in the article. So it sounds like that they're having an issue proving that this is relevant, because they can't show that it's speeding up. Does that make sense? Because they don't have anything to process to prove that quantum computing is necessary. At least that's what I get from the article.
Is anyone else freaked out by the data, by the USB cable coming out of Cadeas's head?
Oh, shut up.
See, he's really like
I've been having
Data
a
from
lot of
Star Trek, right?
So I decided to totally wipe glass and start fresh. So yeah, so I'm running some tests right now. So yes, there's.
Wait. You wiped it to start fresh. You just got a new pair. And,
you're not supposed to know I just got a new pair.
and you're driving to San Francisco tomorrow.
It will be working by tomorrow, I promise.
The world's longest USB cable will be going to San
Things
Francisco.
haven't been functioning like they should. So I erased it, and I'm running a couple tests to see if I can recreate the problem to report it. So this is what we have to do. So then that way, Pam, when you walk into the store and buy it, it works.
Okay.
Cadeas, have you read the book Midnight?
No, I don't read books. Sorry.
Okay. Well, this is one that you should read. It's by Dean Koontz, Midnight.
The name sounds familiar.
And basically, there's this group of people in it, right, that end up being connected to the computer, right?
Okay.
Just permanently connected to the computer.
Okay.
And that's what that wire represents. That's where you're headed here, guy.
Only in the new world we're connected via wireless. So we got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and everything else, and cellular.
Yeah, but in Midnight they actually end up becoming part of the computer, where they're not even distinct.
Yeah, this is the start of that. I don't know.
There
Just
you go.
wireless.
So, Craig,
Huh.
Cy says, don't piss off the machines, Craig. They will be our leaders soon.
Absolutely.
I welcome
100%.
our robot overlords.
And guess what, Craig? This is the start.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll do whatever they say. I'm not going to resist. Resistance is futile.
Yeah, I appreciate the Borg analogy when discussing glass. All right, so next up is to two very different takes on this story. The Supreme Court case, Alice Corporation versus CLS Bank. So I'm going to begin with the SCOTUS blog, which I highly recommend if you're a Supreme Court buff. SCOTUS standing for Supreme Court of the United States, scotusblog.com. And the headline here from David Kapos, who's a great writer. And it says, symposium, the Supreme Court leaves patent protection for software innovation intact. The lead paragraph, from the perspective of the parties involved, this week's Alice Corporation versus CLS Bank decision held that a process that lessens settlement risk for trades of financial instruments is too abstract for patenting. However, to the leagues of interested onlookers holding their collective breath across our country and indeed around the world, the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling subtly conveyed a much more significant judgment. Software as a class is every bit as worthy of patent protection as any other medium in which innovation can be practiced. Now here's the Quartz take, another very smart blog. Quartz, the U.S. Supreme Court just issued a rare unanimous ruling that will make it harder for technology companies to patent ideas and processes, and harder for patent trolls to force companies to choose between paying up for violating broad patents or facing time-consuming, expensive litigation. The case between two financial companies concerned software for clearing financial transactions. CLS Bank used a method that Alice Corporation claimed a patent on, but courts say this method, essentially a program that checked to make sure the parties had the assets to pay up, is just an abstract idea which isn't eligible for patent protection even when you turn it into code. As Justice Clarence Thomas put it in the ruling, stating an abstract idea while adding the words apply it is not enough for patent eligibility, nor is limiting the use of an abstract idea to a particular technological environment. Stating an abstract idea while adding the words apply it with a computer simply combines these two steps with the same deficient result. And then it says it's not that simple. The decision does not ditch all software patents, and how to distinguish between acceptable software patents and those that aren't is less than clear. They added a concurrence saying that though all business process patents should be invalidated, but they didn't, but the majority of the court declined to join them, perhaps fearful that the chaos it might cause in the tech sector. So Pam is frozen. Craig, or Pam's away from the computer. Craig, can you weigh in on this briefly? About we've seen all this stuff about patents, Samsung and Apple suing each other, spending God knows how much money. It's going on and on. If you create something innovative, you should have the right through the patent system to protect it for the period of time. You know, if you the Keurig coffee maker is an example, right? I mean, all kinds of every invention. In order to encourage invention, you get a period of time when you're protected from others producing the invention, and then after a period of time, anybody can do it. So that way you can profit from it. If everyone could immediately steal your idea, then you wouldn't be incentivized to do it. On the other hand, we're seeing all this litigation and things like the one-click button on Amazon that they patented, which it seems like illogical.
Well,
how do you balance all this out, Craig?
Well, wasn't it Shakespeare that said kill all the lawyers? So obviously the whole system is stacked in such a way that the lawyers are making out and the rest of us not so much. But I think the people that are vocal, that are complaining about the system, a lot of it is sour grapes. A lot of it is they want to use innovations of others just freely and not have to worry about it. I think that there are systems in place right now where if you have a patent, you have to reasonably license it to others. You can't be unreasonable about licensing it. And so there are rules in place that protect people that want to use these innovations and other products. There are arguments that the system is outmoded, that it doesn't take into account how fast things move in tech. So that's an issue. Now I have to uncheck the notifications again in this Hangout because it's beeping all the time. I've already done it and saved it once, but we need more innovation here. But maybe they do need to revisit some of these rules with regard to software and some of these modern technologies where things need to be applied a little bit differently. And needless to say, like any federal regulations, I'm sure everything's way too complicated. You probably have 10,000 pages of rules that deal with all of this that should be 6 pages. But how do we fix all that?
I kind of think that the tone of the ruling has to do with patenting an idea that you really don't know how to get from the idea stage to the fruition stage, and patenting something that you have the idea on how to get it from the idea stage to the fruition stage. So I think that the idea here is, just because I can think of something doesn't mean that it's worthy of a patent unless I can expand on that in such a way as to create a marketable product or a marketable thing, right? Then it becomes, once you can have a proof of concept, then you can move forward. But just because I dream of something, doesn't mean that I can patent it. So I do think that is kind of what they're saying. Now, I'm not an attorney, and I definitely don't know as much about patent law as I'd like to, so I could be way off base, but I think that that's what they're trying to say here. That's just my 2 cents. Do you have any sense, Michael?
I have absolutely no sense at all.
And just to clarify on Craig, not all patents have to be licensable. If it's I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a lawyer, but I think the way it works is if it's a crucial patent, like you cannot develop a smartphone unless you have this patent, like a way to use the existing cellular technologies, then they have to license that to you. But if you invent the hula hoop and it's a unique toy that no one's thought of before, that you don't have to license that to other manufacturers. So I think it depends if it's a crucial thing that would be a barrier to entry if you didn't license it for a manufacturer of a common technology, then they have to. Like Microsoft's Android patents. They couldn't refuse to license to a new phone. A new manufacturer wanted to produce an Android phone. Microsoft couldn't withhold those patents. They'd have to license them on fair terms. But if someone wanted to develop an iPhone and just copy
in other
it,
words,
they wouldn't
if
be allowed
it's
to
a
do that.
roadblock, if you would be using your patent like a roadblock, where you're actually stopping somebody from doing something, then that's when you need to license it to them.
Sort of, but that's not the best analogy, because you could say it's a roadblock to developing a hula hoop clone, right? So it's vague, but if it's a common, I'm not sure what the terminology is, and perhaps one of our intelligent viewers could explain it better. But there's a term for it. But if you invent training wheels or the hula hoop or some completely unique thing no one's thought of before, and you patent it, then you have protection. You don't have to license it to anybody. But if it's something like if you claim a patent or register a patent for some technology that's used in smartphones or automobiles, you couldn't not license it to Tucker, who wants to develop a new car, or Tesla. You couldn't say like.
So you don't have to license it, and you don't even have to produce it or anything. You could just sit on it.
Sure.
See, now that I think should be changed.
If it's a completely unique thing.
Yeah, that should not be allowed.
If it's the hula hoop or the training wheel, it's a completely unique thing.
Yeah,
now, what you're talking about
not
applies in trademarks. If you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah, that should not be allowed. Yeah, that they should change. Because
but that's not
somebody
unprecedented. You could write a book and not publish it. That doesn't give anyone else the right to publish it in your stead. It's your unique work.
But if you invent something useful, something that actually does something, and people are interested in it, and people want it, right? And there's a demand, and then you decide, well, no, I'm just going to sit on it. Screw everybody, right? that should not be allowed. And there should be laws to deal with that kind of a situation. Because just because you thought of this idea first and you figured this thing out first doesn't mean you should be able to deprive humanity of something that is useful.
Sure, and maybe Pam could discuss this because she's in biotech, so medicines and things like that, innovations that could save lives. But if you think about it, it could be just a temporary thing where you're trying to find the right manufacturer or trying to get the funding together. You can still register your patent. That doesn't mean that you're prepared to launch factories.
Good faith, as long as you show good faith effort that you're bringing it to market and that you're doing what you need to do, then yeah, I think that's fine.
But
I'm just
determining
saying,
the difference between someone who cannot and will not is difficult. I mean, you could simply claim to be searching for manufacturers when really it's a futile effort.
They've got squatting laws on domain names now that I agree with, where you can't just register a domain name, for example, and squat on it if somebody else has a use for it and has a need for it and so on and so forth, and you're not using it, you could risk losing it. So I think there's precedent for that, and they could certainly structure laws around that. I think everything needs to really be simplified and boiled down to the bottom line is when something really cool is invented, it should be available to people. People should be able to buy it. People should be able to use it. People should be able to enjoy it. And the laws should be written in such a way that it encourages that and also rewards the person that invented it. Absolutely. That person should have a period of time where they own the rights and where they're going to make, good income off of this thing and so on and so forth, whatever it may be. But the laws should certainly be structured in such a way that it would punish somebody if they decided to be greedy and just sit on it and hold out for unreasonable money or whatever, or hold it hostage or whatever other evil doing that they might want to do.
And Pam is making a quick note that at 10:35 p.m. Eastern, Craig advocated new laws.
I advocated going from 10,000 pages down to 6 pages.
Maybe we could have a special.
I'd be happy to write the 6 pages.
Pam, I think we should have a special commission set up to look into this proposal from Craig for new laws, and maybe a czar. He or she will need an assistant, of course.
I bet you, I would be willing to bet. I'd be willing to bet that Pam and I could put our heads together and could come up with 6 pages. Could come up with 6 pages that we could agree on that would address all of these issues and take it from 10,000 pages of regulations that nobody understands down to 6 pages that everybody will understand.
And if you could solve Middle East peace.
We could probably do that too. Pam is sharp. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have to do a damn thing. I'd just take half the credit.
I think Craig's approach to solving the Middle East crisis would be, we're going to have peace in this valley if I have to kill every SOB in it.
That was actually probably what I would do.
I'd let Pam write it up, and I just take half the credit. What do you think, Michael?
I think that works.
Yeah.
For X number of years, and then anybody can do a generic version of your peace plan.
Wait. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Right.
Pam is absolutely right.
If someone steals your idea, go ahead, finish reading it so you stay on screen there.
If someone steals your ideas, it's the worst for writer-designer.
Yeah, we all agree that patents are a good thing when sometimes. To encourage, the patent system exists to encourage innovation. If you spend years inventing the light bulb or the hula hoop or the training wheel or whatever, then you should be able to sell that without competitors immediately making knockoffs that are cheaper because you have to recoup your investment. That is the idealistic situation that is the reason we have patents.
By the way, Dan, if you want to see a hula hoop used properly, Just go to hoopinglive.com, and if you want to check out the show live, there's a live show Monday nights at 9 p.m. hoopinglive.com. But you can see the videos right there, right now, and
Conflict with
see
another show that we
how
honor.
hula hoop is used.
So you're advising folks not to watch Our Android Week. They should instead watch Hula
Well-
Hoop Hot Chicks.
I mean, if it's between Audrey
Are
and
you
Hooping
implying
Live,
that we don't have hot chicks hula hooping on Our Android Week?
I think you could. I think that's an easy decision for them to make.
You should let the viewers make up their own minds.
That's right.
All right.
Dan and Alan are
due to
using
modern
Hulu.
time, due to modern time shifting technologies, they can watch both.
All right. Any further comments on patent trolls? And what an interesting. If you look at this story, I think it was The Verge. I've closed the tab now. Versus the SCOTUS blog take. It's really interesting, and I'm a big fan of looking at multiple sites on news stories when you have time, right? As my ass steadily expands in this chair. But if you have time on these issues, it was a really interesting, different take from SCOTUS blog and the tech-centered sites. Okay, so next up is the Supreme Court. This is actually one of my favorite stories tonight. This is about freedom of speech again, and this is an AP story here. So the High Court will hear an appeal over illegal threats. This is a really interesting story. The Supreme Court will consider the free speech rights of people to use violent or threatening language on Facebook and other electronic media. This is an Eastern Pennsylvania man sentenced to 4 years in prison, almost 4 years, for posting online rants about killing his estranged wife.
Wait. I think he called the rants raps.
They were in rap form. They were. He said he was depressed, and made the online post in the form of rap lyrics as a way of venting his frustration that his wife left him. At his trial,
Like Eminem.
right, exactly like Eminem, except Eminem has better lawyers apparently. At his trial, the jury was instructed that he could be found guilty if an objective person could consider his post to be threatening. Attorneys say that the jury should have been told to apply a subjective standard and decide whether he meant the messages to be understood as threats. And then I'm looking here for an example. There was a different story I saw that, see, this pisses me off. The AP hasn't put any of these threatening lyrics in here, so we can't judge. How do you judge if it's read if they don't have a picture, right? Basically, they were like, I'm going to slit your throat, I'm going to do whatever. But it was like a song, right? And this is like, I don't know how to go down this.
You want me to see how I can find it?
Yeah, go ahead, Pam. Craig, were you aware of this story before this? Or if you could weigh in briefly while Pam tries to find a different link. Because really, it's hard to judge a book by its cover, right? You want to read a chapter. And it's just a brief passage to put it in perspective, but apparently the FBI agent interviewed him about it, and then he posted another Facebook post saying like, I'm gonna punch the agent in the throat, throw her down my moat, or I'm making that up, but some stupid rap crap. Oh my God, I totally did not mean to rhyme just then, but seriously, I didn't. I'm not a very poetic dude, but if you were just like, that's a great analogy Pam came up with about Eminem, Marshall Mathers, who was in a big dispute with his wife Kim, and was writing some lyrics about her.
Well, Dan, the bottom line is we've got more people in jail right now than any other civilized country on the face of the earth, including China. And we've got plenty of money. This country's not in debt or anything like that. What the heck? Let's just build a lot more prisons. Maybe let's build double the number that we have right now, and just let's lock everybody up that says anything foul, that of course, anybody that runs the foul of any federal officer or agent, my
But
gosh,
I thought we
lock
were the
them up.
land of the free,
Lock them up immediately, you know.
home of the brave.
What the heck? I mean, we got plenty of money, right? We could just hire more prison guards and build more prisons and just lock them all up.
Let me ask Michael Ellis, what do you think about someone who posts a poem or rap lyrics, whatever you want to call it, not a specific thing like I'm going to kill my wife, you know, the hoe left me or whatever, you know, not specific threat, right? But did like a poem or an artistic expression which was violent in nature, but he hadn't, you know, sticks and stones. What do you think about this? This is kind of a, I'd say it's fair to say it's a gray area.
I found a couple of the
Go ahead,
things that
Pam,
you
please,
said.
so we can.
Sorry. The first one was one post about his wife said, "There's one way to love you, but 1,000 ways to kill you. I'm not going to rest until your body is a mess, soaked in blood and dying from all the little cuts."
Wow.
And then after the agents went to his house,
To inquire about this post.
Yep. He wrote, "Little agent lady stood so close, took all the strength I had not to turn. The woman ghost, pull my knife, flicked my wrist, and slit her throat." So those are the only two lyrics I could find.
Yeah, that's what I saw. So here's the thing. Before I go back to Michael, here's the difference. If let's say that, and we've seen this happen. A rapper was in a dispute with a company or a person or another rapper, and they went on the stage at whatever amphitheater they're playing at or club, and they wrote a song, and they said something, you know, talking about, you know, I'm gonna kill this person, whatever. Who's the remember the song Cop Killer, right? The rapper who's now playing a detective on television, or was, and that was very controversial. It was a song called Cop Killer. He wasn't actually saying I'm going to kill a cop, right? It was an artistic expression to express his outrage. I think it was following the Rodney King or whatever similar situation. He wasn't actually saying I'm going to go kill cops. It was a radical artistic expression.
I think we're using the term artistic kind of loosely here.
I don't think so. I think art is. It's important to remember, the freedom of speech exists to protect unpopular speech. It does not exist to protect "I love mom,"
Yeah,
apple
but we
pie is
don't have
awesome.
to call it art.
But well, art. No, that's arrogant for you.
We can
That's
call it filthy language. We can call it.
yeah,
you know,
but that's an arrogant white Anglo-Saxon Protestant dude speaking there, Craig.
it's filthy by any measure, by any
No,
realistic
it's not.
measure.
I mean,
it's
there's
filthy.
there are all
But-
kinds of rap lyrics that are very popular and sell
Yeah.
millions,
Doesn't-
and you don't
just 'cause
like
they're
them
popular doesn't make them not filthy.
by your definition. But the whole point of the First Amendment
No,
is,
by any reasonable definition.
well, do you have a
they're
problem with Sharia law then? Let's impose that.
I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying, I was being sarcastic when I was saying lock everybody up. I think the problem that we have here is a societal problem. You know,
But-
where people think that these kinds of things are acceptable.
No, we don't.
And
Well,
they
no,
They actually pay
Look,
money. You know, people
I'm not
pay money
advocating
and
that.
buy,
Listen,
and
I'm-
buy these things.
no, hang on,
And
hang
that's
on.
what's really
I'm not-
perplexing.
Hang on, Craig. The issue is the principle. Here, I'm going to go all ACLU on you. I agree that some of these lyrics are garbage, and advocating violence and raping, you know, stuff like that is absolute garbage. It's gutter lyrics, no question, right? But that's my view. There may be,
And
you
that's
know,
a
whatever.
reasonable view,
But
Dan.
if they
It's-
have
it's-
the
it's-
right,
if
they
you don't
have
have
the
to go
right,
further than that. You
no,
don't
if they
to-
have the right to censor lyrics that are offensive to you, then they could have the right to censor lyrics that might be the wrong religion, or the wrong political view, or that sort of thing. In other words, the First Amendment
I'm
right
not saying
should be
that they should
absolute,
censor
barring
the
like
guy.
minors
I'm not-
obviously have different rights and
I'm not
inmates have
saying they
different
should
rights.
censor him. I'm not saying they should censor him.
They locked him up. What's beyond censoring than that?
No, I didn't say they should lock him up. I said they shouldn't lock him up. I was being sarcastic when I said they should lock everybody up, right? Which is what they're doing.
But seriously, the issue is not, and that's a distraction.
What
And
we need to do is what we should do is we should speak out when we hear this sort of thing and say that it's garbage and say that
Right.
dirty and it's
It
foul.
would be better if a larger percentage of the population would speak out against
That's right.
But-
This political correctness saying it's art and all this
Date
stuff
the
is
guy.
horseshit.
not publishing things like that.
but
But that's
we
not the
shouldn't buy it, and we shouldn't support them. We shouldn't go to their concerts, right?
Right.
And we shouldn't allow our children to go to their concerts.
that's fine, Craig. But goddamn, can we please get back to the fucking story? The issue is that this person wrote lyrics which are not in any way more offensive or more violent sounding than stuff I've heard from national rap artists. That's the issue. So why
That's
is
right.
this guy who doesn't have fancy attorneys getting 4 years in prison when
He shouldn't
other
be.
national rap artists have a
Shouldn't be.
gig being a detective on NCIS or whatever show it is?
He shouldn't be.
It's a
He
double
shouldn't be
standard.
locked
That's the
up.
issue.
He shouldn't be
Yeah.
locked up. That's not the way to deal with this.
And the first lyric that Pam quoted had what sounded to me like a direct threat against the woman. The second quote didn't sounded very circumspect around, went around the subject of violence, didn't directly advocate violence on a person. But the first lyric talked about he wanted to cut her and slice her 1,000 times. That was very specific. That sounded like a threat to me. And
Okay,
I
so
would-
here's what if you support this ruling or I'm not going to say that. What if this ruling stands, and then some idiot teenage kid is mad at his or her teacher and says like, women of authority, let's say it's a female teacher, women of authority who give you an F, I want to punch her in the face, make her take the test or whatever the hell it is. Should that kid be locked up next? Is that where this is going? That's the issue I'm bringing up here. Why,
not if he
I'm not
said
saying that violent rap lyrics are a good thing in any way. I don't think they are. And I agree with you there. But I don't want to get away from the point. The point is the precedent. Freedom of speech should be absolute, and except the case
but
that,
what Michael's
fire in a
saying
crowded
is-
theater, a child, has
Yeah,
different
but what
rules.
Michael's
and then
saying
they-
is if there was an actual threat here against a particular person,
that's already illegal.
there are laws against that, and then yes, maybe he should go to jail. But my point is, I think the whole thing goes to a larger issue, and that is we as a society are letting a lot of these things get way too far out of hand, where again the political correctness run amok and nobody willing to stand up and say, hey, this is ridiculous, some of these things that some of these people are doing.
let's be
Yeah.
quiet for a moment and give Pam the mic to put this comment up.
You are absolutely right, Craig. Some things are ridiculous, some things are filthy, some things are nasty, and you know what? One of the things I dislike, even though I say it a lot, is I hate it when they put the F word in songs or raps or anything else. I don't think that music and the word should go together. I just don't. That's just my personal preference, even though I use it and I love Eminem, okay? But this is the bottom line here. I support filthy speech. I support the burning of the American flag in protest. I will never recommend it, but I support it. I have taken a solemn oath, and to this day I would take a bullet to protect it. That's America right there. We have
Yeah,
the
that's
freedom to
exactly.
be filthy and nasty and all that stuff, and you know what? You have the ability to not listen to it.
No,
But
but
you
I
can't
think
censor other people.
More than that, Pam, I think we have the obligation to speak out against it.
Absolutely,
do
but you
so.
shouldn't be. But if
Absolutely.
you want it, but if this guy can get locked
But you
up for
can't
what
make
he
it-
did,
You can't say it's illegal.
right?
No,
if,
I
if-
agree. You shouldn't say it's illegal. I was the first one that said that he shouldn't be arrested, right? But I think we should deal with it in a different way. I think we should stand up to this guy and say,
Absolutely.
you're out of line. You shouldn't be saying these things. You shouldn't be writing these things. You're stupid. There's nothing to be gained here. You're going to end up in jail if you keep on this road. You know, we should stand up to people like this. and tell them
absolutely,
that
but
they're
it should be
wrong.
verbally. It should not be using
That's right.
litigiously.
That's right.
Everybody
Well-
should be able to say whatever crazy thing they want, unless it harms somebody.
Well,
and this is we're not saying this guy couldn't be crazy. We're not saying that he might actually be violent. We don't know, but
see, making an actual threat. If he said my ex-wife somewhere in his thing, I'd like to cut her. Even though you rhyme, you're still making a threat against a specific person. If he just said her, she, whatever, like Eminem, then that's a different thing. Then you can take it in a broader context. I was just depressed. I was just doing this. But if you go, Alicia Smith needs to die a horrible death, then
there's a difference. There's a difference,
Right.
Pam, between me saying to you, if you piss me off, right? If I say, like, fine, Pam, what goes around comes around. Or, Pam, I'm going to punch you in the effing face. There's a difference there, right? One's a direct threat. One is an artistic expression meant to piss you off. And that happens so often. Every time there's a nasty breakup or a child custody dispute, people get nasty. Not every time, but a lot often. And that's what this case. This guy was trolling her, trying to get attention, trying to piss her off, clearly, and is probably a jerk.
Looks like a
No, I think we probably all agree on that. And
Craig?
yeah,
I says, oh my God, I think I almost agree with Craig. Shoot me now.
oh, that's a threat. You're going to jail for 4 years, Zy. You're done, buddy. You're out of here. You expressed your opinion in a creative way.
Yeah, you can't commit suicide. That's against the law too.
This is the thing. I'm so First Amendment, even if it's an asshole spewing nonsense, which is why we allow Craig on the program. I love Craig. I'm trolling. I'm just kidding. But seriously, you can't have committees that decide. What based on the information I've seen so far on this case, and we could be proven wrong. He could end up murdering somebody, or he could just be some, poet laureate in waiting. We have no idea, or some future rap artist. I have no idea. I don't know what the person looks like, or what his background is, or anything like that. The bottom line is that this seems to be more like a creative way to troll an ex and get under her skin, which should be solved in a civil way, and less like a someone who posed a direct threat to anybody. And it's a dangerous precedent when, if someone makes a violent video game, then you assume that person is a potential Jeffrey Dahmer, and you lock them up for 10 years. We're not Singapore. We're not China.
Yeah, but we're locking up more people than either one of those places. Sorry.
Absolutely, we're on the same page there. It's absurd, and I'm very libertarian on that stuff. And I agree with you.
All right, I made it to almost the end of the show, but I gotta go.
I love you,
'Cause
Pam.
we're
Thank you so
leaving- we're
much.
leaving at 6. So
Can you ask her how her Google Plus week was?
How was your Google Plus week, Pam? Do you have time, or do you have to pee, or?
no, I'm good. My Google Plus week was pretty good. Why are you asking, Craig? Do you know something I don't?
No, because you're leaving. You get a chance at the end. I was being polite. Is politeness not legal anymore?
I thought maybe you wanted me to speak about something. I was like, what happened this week?
I know I'm a little bit old-fashioned, but I thought we're still allowed to be a little bit polite.
No, it was a great week. I had nothing, just planning the trip and packing and working, I filled in for a coworker this week, so I had to do double the work. And
Tell us why you're packing.
I'm packing because I'm going to go to San Francisco and hang out with Cadeas if he ever gets his glass to work. And
I thought you were going there to protest the buses,
Wait,
and
you
you
acting
have
like
a
I'm
bunch
gonna
of
get lost
eggs.
if my glass ain't working. What are you trying to talk about? I can hear you way in there while I'm speaking to everybody.
If you get the glass,
My glass is working. It's actually working better than it ever
Are you
had.
going to join the bus protests, Pam?
no, I'm not going to join the bus protests. I am just
Good.
I'm just going to do touristy stuff. So, and we're going to try and do Monday's show from the Android Garden on the Google campus. So we'll see how that
Try?
works.
Try?
Well, try it. I mean, I don't even know if we'll have Wi-Fi or.
Remember, I'm bringing a hotspot. LTE.
Oh,
Yeah, but
okay,
there's
okay.
no guarantee that's going to work, big guy.
Oh, are you kidding me? We're on the Google campus.
It depends on how many people are there using their hotspots.
No, I have a proprietary hotspot, so we're good.
All right, so we're good. Yeah, and yeah, I got to go buy some batteries for my camera and the whole bit. So we're leaving
This
early
isn't your
tomorrow. We're
first
gonna try to
time.
take. We're gonna try and take Highway 1 up, which is hugs the coast.
Mm-hmm.
Adds
That'd be
probably a
beautiful.
couple extra hours to the trip, but it'll totally be worth it.
This isn't your first trip up there, is it?
This is my first driving trip up there, but no, I went. I actually toured the Google campus on my birthday, so I was up there last September.
Wow. Okay.
So, and then when I was in 8th grade, I did this whole summer trip where we went all the way up to Sacramento, and we stopped in San Francisco. We actually camped right near the Golden Gate Bridge. They have like a campground, so it was kind of cool too. But we're not camping this time. I promised him a hotel, so I can stay at a hotel.
And Cybernaut says Pam Adger is the best person to hurl with.
Yeah, I've actually hung out with him twice, and if you want to know what he looks like, I actually have a picture that I posted of him for real. So that's on my page. I hung out with him and 3 other Google Plus people on Tuesday. So that was really fun. We had a great time. We had tacos, and then I had lengua tacos. Have you guys ever had tongue tacos before?
yes.
Oh my God, are you serious? You ate tongue?
Oh yeah, I love them. I haven't had a good tongue taco in 20
As a
years.
culinary item, or what?
Yeah, let's.
Man,
not
that
go-
just conjures up so many things I want to say.
I know.
Oh man.
Just tongue taco. I was telling.
Tongue and taco.
Michael,
I-
Craig,
I-
and Cadeas and I are at the edge of our seats here to
I was
continue
doing
that.
this meeting. I was doing this design review meeting because I was filling in for my coworker, and I was telling them the story. I said, "Yeah, well, we went for tacos," and they started laughing. I'm like, "Why are you laughing?" They're like, "Tacos, get it, haha!" And I was just, and I said, "Well, I had tongue tacos." Oh my God, you had tongue tacos, and I was just, it went downhill from there.
I can imagine.
That's awesome.
Then we snuck into the men's restroom at BJ. Oh, then we went to BJ's. So of course they thought that. We
You had tongue tacos at BJ's. Yeah.
God.
Snuck into the men's restroom and took some pictures in the men's restroom with one of the guys that I was hanging out with. So that was fun. Yeah. So I had a great time.
That's awesome. And when Pam says she's having a great time, she's not kidding.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Pam, have a wonderful trip. And
All
I
right.
know you'll keep us posted. I think Monday we're going to do our Android Week live
Yep.
from the, what do they call it? Where all the statues are?
The Android Garden, and Cadeas is bringing his super secret special. Sorry, I was reading Sai's comment. A hotspot. So he's going to bring his hotspot so that we can get good reception and do the show. So
Because Cadeas' spot is hot.
he's not even here to defend himself.
Sorry, that was the Stephen Colbert in me that just then that just snuck out. We're both Virginians. So Pam, always a pleasure. I adore you.
All right.
So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to updates from you starting Monday. Okay, Michael Ellis.
All right. See ya.
Peace out.
Bye.
Michael Ellis, how was your Google Plus week, sir?
Well, pretty good. I haven't had much activity in Google Plus this week, other than I'm trying to figure out how to pare my circles down to, I guess I want to say, a better structure. I have a rather elaborate structure I started with. Seemed to make sense at the time, but now Google Plus has grown a lot, and I find that the circle structure I have is not very effective, and I practically never add anyone anymore. I have about, 3,500 people or so in my circles, and I have so little engagement from new people that there's never anything going on where I want to add anybody. So I'm thinking hard about finding some time to restructure all my circles. And I want to find a way to purge the people that never interact with me. But I'm in Indianapolis this weekend because tomorrow we're celebrating my father's 90th birthday. And we're having a party. And our two exchange students, one from Brazil, a boy, and one from Germany, a girl, are here with their families, and they came from my dad's party. It's been 35 years since they were living with us in our family. So it's going to be a very good week in total. I'm quite happy.
That's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah, good fun.
Yeah, I got to celebrate my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. They're 76, and they're still awesome and funny and witty and all that stuff. And I can't wait till I get to celebrate their 90th birthday party. And you're a lucky man, so good for you.
Yep, very lucky.
Cadeas Kalut in Newport Beach, California. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
Sorry, I've been screaming. My Google Plus week is good for the most part. Had a lot of activity going on. Have a lot of things coming up, and been doing a lot of glass stuff and fixing things. So yeah, that's been my Google Plus week.
A man of many words. Where's your USB cable?
Oh, it's good now. I'm installing everything back on Glass one app at a time, and it's looking good. It's running better than it ever has.
Now, what kind of frames you got there?
Say it again?
What kind of frames you got there?
They are frames, Google frames.
How many options are there for that?
I think we're up to 6 now. I'm actually on that site, or was on that site. I think it's about 6 of them now. So let me see.
Now you can just buy new frames and then switch your hardware over to the new frames pretty easily.
Yep. You have to buy the ones that are compatible, but yeah, as long as you're buying frames that are compatible, yeah, you can do it. It's just one little screw. It's just one little screw on the inside of here. You unscrew it, and then yeah.
Wow.
Very easy.
Awesome. Craig Shipp in Thurmont, Maryland, from areaguides.com. And if you're in Northern Virginia, and don't pay attention to this. If you already make 6 figures, ignore this next message. But if you don't yet make 6 figures, Craig, then you should pay attention to this. We are looking for great sales reps in Northern Virginia and in the Martinsburg, West Virginia area.
And D.C. and Maryland.
And D.C. and in Baltimore area of Maryland, or anywhere in Maryland, really. Then reach out, send a post to me or Craig, and we can change that whole "we're not making 6 figures yet" thing. But Craig, how was your week, sir?
My week was pretty good. I actually posted a few more things on Google Plus than I normally do. I put out several videos this week, and I posted them direct on Google Plus, which I normally just put them up on YouTube, and I don't even bother to share them on Google Plus, but I did this week. And I've made some comments on some videos that I've also shared on Google Plus. So I actually used Google Plus a little bit this week, believe it or not. So there's that. And I really like the animated GIFs that they create from the photos.
What about the stories? Compare that with the stories feature, and also tell us where you're going to be on Sunday.
Well, the stories feature is kind of cool, where they make those stories out of your pictures and so forth. But really, the tool that I like the most, that's really unique, is that animated GIF tool, because it's so easy. You just shoot a series of pictures with your camera with a motor drive. Not called, I guess it's probably not called a motor drive anymore. That dates me right there. But let's say you can shoot 6 or 7 frames a second. It's great. The other day, I shot some photos of Sasha riding her little skateboard type thing, and riding right at the camera. And I had it on continuous autofocus, which my Nikon's very fast. And so I just shot a series of photos of her riding along the walkway and riding towards the camera, and probably 10, 15 photos, maybe 18 photos, whatever, in the sequence. And then you just upload them, and then Google makes a real cool animated GIF out of it. And I'm doing that often now. And it's something unique, something to set apart, my photos from, because everybody's not doing it yet. Eventually, of course, everybody will probably be doing it. But I'm doing that. And Sunday, I have 2 events. I still haven't decided which of the 2 I'm going to cover. One of our big sponsors, Blaine Young, who's the president of the Board of County Commissioners here in Frederick County, he's having his annual picnic. And that's a big event, and that's on Sunday at 2 o'clock. And then at pretty much the exact same time, 40 miles away, is the Miss Maryland sign-in ceremony at the Valley Mall in Hagerstown, where all the contestants are signing in for the Miss Maryland week.
Now, if I had to flip a coin between the old guy and the Miss Maryland contestants, I'm just going to make a wild guess here where you're going to end up.
I really haven't decided yet. I will probably go cover the Miss Maryland event, but I haven't made the final decision. And one thing that is kind of like a factor is, believe it or not, they're very anti-internet, the Miss Maryland organization. Very anti-internet. Whereas Blaine has been a sponsor of our site for forever and is somewhat supportive of what we do. So that kind of weighs into the decision also. But I have a lot of friends that are going to be there at that competition, at the Miss Maryland competition, and that are kind of expecting me to be there and shoot photos. So there's some expectation that I'll be there. I've been there every year for probably 10 years now. So I don't know. It's a tough call. Normally, they had the Miss Maryland event a week ago. They always had it on Father's Day, so it was never a conflict. Now, for some reason, they bumped it a week, and all of a sudden, now we've got this scheduling conflict. So there's that. But, oh well. I'll figure it out.
Awesome. All right, we want to thank you all very much for watching tonight. We appreciate it. Oops, there I am. And thanks to the panel. It was an interesting show and fun, as always. Once again, my programming note, I'll be on the Virginia Talk Radio Network tomorrow at 11:07 a.m. Eastern Time, tomorrow being June 21st, 2014. And that's at 8:07 a.m. Pacific, 11:07 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll be discussing the Redskins trademark revocation controversy and also the Iraq situation. And Michael, you enjoyed it. I think you watched it last week's thing, right?
Yeah, it was great. I didn't watch. I listened.
Or listen, I'm sorry, it's radio, so obviously there's no watching.
Right.
You're not allowed to
It's
watch.
radio. I didn't stare
Yeah.
at the wall.
So just if you want to check that out live, just Google the Virginia Talk Radio Network and click on any of the stations and you'll hear it. It's going to be good and interesting if you're a history buff. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Go ahead, Michael.
I want to hear what you have to say about the Iraq situation, because my brother and I were talking about it today, and he's active military. So he had some opinions, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, stick around for a minute, and I'll give you a preview.
Okay.
Okay, so we do 2 programs. One is called Our Android Week, and that is Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. We also do this program, the Legacy Awesome program, the longest running show on Google Plus. It's called Google Plus Week, and this is at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. So we want to thank you all so very much for watching, and we really appreciate the live comments, especially. And we put them up on the screen. There we go. There's a poem from Kirill there. So thank you so much for that. And until next week, have a wonderful Google Plus Week.